Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fins Up Network. And now that the 2022 NFL schedule has been released, I wanted to take a deeper dive into some intriguing non divisional games that I'm essentially labeling as revenge games, prove it games. But before we get to that, the last video recorded, basically the day that the NFL schedule was released, talked about primetime games, talked about cold weather games, favorable, unfavorable stretches of the schedule. Check that out if you haven't already. And your homework assignment for today, can't have the lazy listener, drop the non-divisional game that you are most excited about heading into the 2022 NFL season. But with that, I'm going to get into my top five. I'm going to go in no particular order, just the five that intrigue me the most, and you'll find out why. And we're starting with the early season, week 4 at Bengals. It's that Thursday night football game. And this Dolphins Bengals has kind of turned into almost like a little bit of a rivalry because if you remember back in 2020, when Mike Thomas of the Bengals laid a couple of cheap shots on Jakeem Grant, we all know what happened from there. Flores got fired up. Devontae Parker and Hollins were part of the scrum. They got ejected following the brawl. And guess what we've added to this rivalry? Boom. Tua and Burrow enter the mix. They're forever going to be linked due to being top 5 picks in the same draft. And Burrow has set the bar with his Super Bowl appearance. And now we've got Tua seemingly in this prove it season. But if Tua can continue to stockpile wins against these teams with these young quarterbacks that he's being compared to, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Patriots, that's eventually going to help in the process of silencing the critics. So week 4, that's my first one right there against the Bengals. Let's go to another primetime game for number 2. Week 7 at home against the Steelers, Sunday night football. And this one comes down to two people in particular. You know who it is. It's Minkah Fitzpatrick. My daughter is allegedly upset at Minkah Fitzpatrick, if you heard her screaming there. And Brian Flores. And we're going to start with Minkah because, as we all know, Minkah essentially got his way by requesting his trade early into his second year with the Miami Dolphins. That year, week 1, the Dolphins just get absolutely blitzed by the Ravens. The rebuild questions come up, the tank questions come up. Minkah honestly didn't like being utilized at numerous positions as well. I'm not breaking any news there. There were also the reports that him and Flores weren't really seeing eye to eye. Him and the rest of the coaching staff weren't seeing eye to eye. So traded away to Pittsburgh, where he's essentially become a bit of a household name. And it'll actually be the second time that the Dolphins have faced Minkah with the Steelers. We needed to go a little bit better this time around. The Steelers won that game 27-14 back in 2019. Unfortunately, Minkah got 2 interceptions as well. But with the Steelers quarterback situation, I'm not really quite sure if they're going to be ready to compete this year, be in that wild card mix. But regardless, it never hurts to get wins over these conference opponents. So get the win here. Stick it a bit to Minkah, stick it to Flores. And speaking of Flores, we don't need to beat a dead horse here, but he's now obviously the linebackers coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And after him being essentially the catalyst for the anti-Tua crowd, how great would it be for Tua to come in and just straight up dominate this defense the way that Flores was allegedly just obsessed with Deshaun Watson, showing very little support to Tua throughout his career there. Reports of him ignoring the quarterback, ignoring the offensive coordinator, ignoring the front office. And now we've got the pay for tank allegations. We've got the lawsuit. And I think we could all agree Flores seemed like a good coach after year 1. But I don't know about you, but I am super happy with having Mike McDaniel. So this would just be that feather in the cap type of win week 7 against the Steelers. Speaking of Deshaun Watson, my number 3 game here, week 10 versus the Browns. And this one boils down to that one player, and it is Deshaun Watson. It's not even like Watson has done anything wrong to the Dolphins. It's just the constant distraction that his name was surrounding the team, essentially from the moment that he requested this being traded until Mike McDaniel came and essentially said, you know what, Tua's our guy. We're not even in on the Watson sweepstakes. Now, we'll have to see if Watson gets suspended, if he's even eligible at this point in time. But if he plays, you can be sure that this will be an absolute media circus. If Watson and the Browns win, you can already see the headlines. Dolphins make wrong move at quarterback. Tua is not the franchise quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. They made the biggest mistake. The list goes on and on. But a win. Solid numbers from Tua. Maybe a Watson interception or two. Come on, X. Make sure you get that job done. The media will have no choice to at least be silent for the time being. So that's why the Week 10 matchup against the Browns gets a nod into my top 5. Let's go on to the next one here. Week 13 at the 49ers. And this is an interesting one because there's no bad blood on this one, but rather it's just the first meeting between Mike McDaniel and his former team. And Kyle Shanahan isn't going to want to let the student outshine him in this one. This one's going to mean a ton to both of these coaches. These guys know each other very well. They know the tendencies. They know the strategy. They know how they want to try to execute. You may see some wrinkles, some trick plays in this game, but it's also going to be interesting to see how the 49ers are doing by this point in time, week 13 into the season, because the reports right now from Trey Lance seemingly coming back a little bit underwhelming. And guess who's still on the roster there? Jimmy Garoppolo. I know they've been trying to move him, but if push comes to shove and Trey Lance isn't showing anything, maybe they hold on to him. And most importantly for the Dolphins fans, Miami gets the 2023 first rounder from the San Francisco 49ers. So every 49ers loss is huge. Miami has this one in its own hands. Go ahead and get that win. And finally, probably the winner. I put a poll out on the community YouTube page and said, which non-divisional game are you most intrigued by? And I think the last time I checked, week 14 was leading the way. And this is basically my number one as well. And it's the quarterback reasons. You know how much I talked about Burrow and Tua being comped together. Well, Tua and Herbert, it's that times 100. And this is obviously, Miami didn't have the chance at Burrow. So they're not going to be quite as comped as Tua and Herbert because the Dolphins obviously selected with both of them on the board and they made Tua their guy. So these guys are going to be comped forever by fans, by media. And Tua and the Dolphins are currently 1-0 versus Herbert and the Chargers. Miami won back in 2020, 29-21. The score really wasn't even all that close. If you remember that game, which I'm sure you do, the Chargers scored with like 2 minutes to pull it within 8 there. But in that game, Tua, Herbert, neither of them were great. Neither of them were bad. They were just sort of average. But we've seen growth from Herbert since then. And the pro Herbert crowd would like nothing more than for Tua to struggle in this one, for Herbert to look great, and the Chargers to get that win. But here it is. It's another game with huge playoff implications. The AFC West is stacked. I don't need to tell anyone that every single game for those teams this year is going to be unbelievably important. The Chargers are projected to be one of those teams in the mix, if not for the division, in the wild card race, where we can likely see the Dolphins heading as well. But you got to win these type of head-to-head matchups just for your season, for your playoff chances, and for our sake as Dolphins fans, proving that we have the franchise quarterback. But that's what I have got for my 5 games. I'm interested to see what you've got as well. Go ahead and make sure you drop that in the comments below. If you haven't already, make sure that you are subscribing. And that's what we've got for today. Until next time, Dolphins fans, fins out.